Compassion, compassion, compassion. Most people don't even know what the hell compassion is. There's a lot of people out there that don't. We can't assume. I can't say all, and I certainly can't generalize. That would be negative and that would be unfair. But there are a lot of people that don't know what compassion is, but they do know what judgment is. Now, my philosophy has always been that compassion is actually the opposite of judgment. And we live in a judgmental world now because of social media, because of the whole likes and the thumbs down and the thumbs up. We've become gladiators in technology. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Did they die? Did they stay? What happens? That's basically where the whole thumbs up and thumbs down has come from, the gladiatorial concept. Gentle power of self-compassion is today's episode, and I'm Mario Leone. Welcome to the Voices of Victory channel. Now, after watching the fight last night of Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey, I'm pretty impressed. But at the same token, I understand Gina Carano had lost, but I also have compassion for her. A lot of people won't do that. They may not be able to do that. They may not be able to see the athlete in Gina now for that reason. And we're going to step away from the whole mixed martial arts UFC concept. I need you to understand the power of self-compassion and why it actually matters today more than ever. So we live in this world that's totally obsessed with achievement, with the likes and the dislikes, the constant self-improvement. And we are constantly growing and changing and molding every single day. We are doing that. But it does create pressure to be perfect without having a sense of inner contentment, being content with who you are on the inside. That's where it gets rough. That's where it gets choppy. People have difficulty finding that line between I need to be content with myself and I need to also grow. And this is where the concept of being average comes in. People say, okay, well, if I'm being average, like what's wrong with average? What's wrong with average? What's wrong with growing? I think what's really important to know is there really is nothing wrong with raising your standards and increasing your capacity. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's also important for you to like and appreciate yourself and be content with who you are on the inside. Not necessarily content with your results, because there's always room for improvement. There's always room for that. But to be content with that and to understand what that actually looks like, that's a big deal. So what I want to share with you is it leaves a lot of people feeling totally inadequate at the end of the day, because they feel that they have to reach certain levels because of the rest of the world. That's what's happening. So it becomes this tough, relentless pursuit, and it leaves us feeling very vulnerable, and the inner critic kicks off. And that same inner critic that's on the inside is the same outer critic as well, because you'll judge other people just as equally as you judge yourself. That does happen because it's the same mechanism. What's inward is usually got to go outward at the end of the day. So you get this voice in your head that's reminding you of your own flaws, your own shortcomings, and where you should be in the world and where you should be in life, because we fall into that comparison culture. But what is self-compassion with all this, right? Well, it's about treating yourself with some kindness, treating yourself with some understanding that you are human, especially when you stumble, when you make mistakes, when you fall, when you lose like Gina Carano lost. It means stopping that endless cycle of just beating yourself up with self-criticism. And you're practicing acceptance, accepting where you are in the moment, because the only way to move forward is to accept where you are, because you are growing, you are on a path, you are on a journey, you are going forward, but every now and then you have to stop and just accept yourself as you are, not as you'd like to be, as you are on the spot. Then you can move forward after that. Imagine having a friend that you offer support, or maybe they offer you support and they offer encouragement, especially when things are hard, when things are difficult. That's the essence of self-compassion, when your friend does that with you and you do it with them. Because there are benefits of self-compassion. There's less stress and you become more resilient. And life is going to throw everything at you. It's going to throw the kitchen sink at you. And if you're on the ground, it'll smash you in the back of the head with it. So self-compassion, it helps us navigate. It helps us navigate the difficult aspects of life with a little bit more grace and less emotional overwhelm. It allows us to embrace mistakes, to understand what those mistakes are. We don't want to embrace the mistakes because we fear that mistakes will make us less important. in the world because we compare our mistakes to other people. Basically how that goes. Perfectionism often can come directly through a parent. The parent or authority, it doesn't have to be a parent, it could be an authority, that actually ridiculed you and judged you the most when you are growing up. And that becomes your inner voice at the end of the day. I think it's important for us to look that there's deep sources of anxiety when we start to compare ourselves. We don't understand that we need to have opportunities for growth. Because if we don't embrace our mistakes, it becomes the source of that deep anxiety. Because we remember these mistakes and we compare ourselves, and it's all about how we look rather than actually how we grow. And that is a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. And it's not just about being positive all the time. We don't always have to be positive and we don't always have to be negative, but we can be neutral. We can get to a place of being neutral because neutral can have acceptance. So you can go from negative to neutral and then you can actually move to positive after that because you're processing your feelings and you're accepting who you are and what's going on. And inner peace is really crucial. It's a crucial thing. Most people will go to the outside world and look at the conflict of the outside world, and they may not have any inner peace at all. They're too busy fighting every single fight that's out there. Well, self-compassion, it transforms your relationship with yourself, and it goes from the harsh critic to a gentle, loving guide. You become more resilient. You become more capable. You start to bounce back from those setbacks, but this time there's more renewed strength on the inside. So it's greater well-being because you're practicing self-kindness. You're practicing self-acceptance. You have to be able to boost your overall happiness and well-being, and that's part of it all. It's looking at the bigger picture of your well-being. It also reduces that negative aspect. You allow yourself to see yourself as you are, not as you'd like to be, not as you're comparing yourself, but as you are. It's momentary. It's acceptance at best. And the world around you, if you start to look at it with a different light, you'd be surprised at what actually shows up. All of those dark parts of life start to light up a little bit. So how do you start doing this? Very first thing, self-acceptance is important, and acknowledge your inner critic. Bottom line, recognize the inner critic. Start by becoming more mindful. Slow down a little bit and start to pay attention. There is the difference between thoughts and thinking. We're so busy thinking that we don't slow down to actually identify our thoughts. And that takes a little bit of practice. You want to understand that not every thought has to stay. We get used to it. Our ego grabs one thought and it wraps around it like an anaconda and sticks to it like glue. And quite honestly, you have to train yourself to say, okay, this thought is here, I'm now letting it go. You have that power, you have that ability. You feel like you don't because you've been constantly claiming ownership to every single thought. And thoughts are just thoughts. They can be totally random. But the ones that you hang on to are the ones that you might stake claim in. You might claim them as your own, and that's where it can be a big problem. So we have to consider that. So here's the deal, is focus on gratitude. Very crucial to have that sense of gratitude because those negative voices, they're going to pop up, and instead of getting lost in their judgment, acknowledge them. Okay, there's thoughts that are here. I don't need to agree with everyone. I don't need to hang on to everyone. Now, when you do focus on gratitude, it's important for you to shift your focus for the things you're grateful for. You need to start really small. If you have a pen in your hand and that pen gives you the capability to do something, then be grateful for that. And most people will say, oh, well, it's just a pen. What's the big deal? It's just a small thing. No, you're too busy looking at the rest of life and comparing things to the rest of life that you forget that this tiny little pen or your car keys or something small can actually give you something incredible in life. We fail to look at that. We don't know how to be gratitude because we have been putting ourselves in the place of comparison. We fall into the comparison culture so much that any object that's tiny and we're grateful for, we might just, oh, that's nothing. You might blow it off and say, that's not important. A pen in your life is not important. No, it's actually quite important because it allows you to do certain things. Your computer, your cell phone, they allow you to do certain things. There are tiny little things. Even your bed covers in the morning allow you to be warm in the wintertime or allow you to stay warm at night when it's cold. You have to start looking at the tiny little things. tiny little things, that your health is okay. If your health is all right, then zoom in on that. Start zooming in on the small things. Because when we take a hard look at everything, you have to treat yourself with boundaries. And you have to protect your time, protect your energy, and most of all, protect your psychology, protect your brain. Give yourself some permission to rest. Give yourself some recharge. Start looking at the tiny moments that bring you joy without guilt, and start looking at the tiny objects that enable you to do very big things. That's a great place to start. Go on a gratitude rampage. Look around your room, look around your bedroom, look around your home, look around your neighborhood, and just ask yourself, this object, this thing, this person, to be grateful for what they're able to enable you to do. And that's where it gets really positive and interesting. So you have to have boundaries that protect your time and your energy as well. You have to have boundaries with other people. Because if you don't have boundaries in your own life and you're not grateful for those boundaries, you'll let other people take advantage. If you're not grateful of the free time that you have, then you will let low value things take up your schedule. You'll let those unimportant things get in the way of your development in your life. So it matters now. It matters because we're living in a world that pressures us to be perfect all the time, and self-compassion is a superpower in 2026. It helps you navigate all those challenges with more grace, more resilience, and more self-acceptance. Now, if you're looking for self-love, but I want to love myself. Not so fast, not so quick. Don't start with the whole self-love thing. Start with self-like. Start with accepting yourself. Self-acceptance first, and learn to like yourself first before you actually love yourself. And if we look at perfection, the idea of perfection is a difficult one. It's a very difficult one because there's a fine line. The whole concept of perfection feels like it's a relentless thing. We feel like it's unattainable and we chase it relentlessly. That's what we do. We chase the idea of perfection. But the truth is, perfection itself is a myth. Because we're designed as humans to strive for goals, but striving for an idealized version of ourselves can be self-hating. You can start to hate yourself when you can't reach what the rest of the world wants you to become. So it does stem from wanting to feel accomplished, wanting to feel worthy, wanting to feel like other people do, not realizing your journey is not their journey is not your journey. So what happens is this creates chronic anxiety at best. It creates unrealistic expectations, and there's a sense of emptiness that you will always fall short. You will believe that you will always fall short. So it's this major pitfall, this slippery slope that we fall into, because it feels like a path of happiness, but it leaves us feeling totally disappointed and totally disconnected from our true selves. So now let's talk about that. I've talked about self-judgment. Self-judgment is literally a mirror. It's an absolute mirror. Judgment itself is a mirror because we project our own criticism onto others. And this happens because our brain is totally wired for patterns, to seek patterns. And we seek patterns in how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive other people. When we judge harshly, it's usually due to a combination of these very factors. The very first thing is the past experience, which of course comes from our childhood. We could look to the major authority in our childhood that was the one who criticized us the most, and that becomes our inner self-talk. So our childhood, our relationships, our culture, even the personal experiences that have shaped our expectation of this is good, this is bad, this is what good looks like, this is what bad looks like, and then these standards actually apply. And I think what some people do is they get these standards all mixed up on the inside. That's where it gets difficult. So it is internalized. We internalize the messages that we actually receive from society, from the world, from our major authority as a child. And then there's a pressure to conform. Oh, I have to conform. Okay, now I have to judge others. And now I have to judge others based on these particular ideals. And we have to look at the mechanics of thought because, quite honestly, it's important to understand that thoughts are not just random things, okay? They come up, and they come up from our schema, our mental recipe, our little construct in the brain that is our recipe for our understanding and the way we interact with the actual world. Here's how it works. You're going to perceive something. You're obviously going to observe a person. You're going to observe an event. That's going to happen. So what does you do? What does your brain do? Well, your brain will start to interpret what's going on. It'll take that observation and run it through your existing beliefs. Then it'll take a look at your values. It'll take a look at your past experiences. And then, of course, how you feel in the moment. And if you're feeling like shit at that moment, you might just give a very sour interpretation and realize, you know what? I really judged you unfairly. I'm sorry I judged you that way. You might realize that later on. And that's how it happens. That's when people judge unfairly and they recognize later, if they recognize later. When it comes down to the judgment, based on this interpretation, you create that judgment. It's good, bad, right, wrong, worthy, unworthy, cringe, not cringe, whatever bullshit rule that you want to throw up, it's there. It's totally there. You could call them rules, B-R-U-L-E-S, bullshit rules that life has given us. So you want to claim some ownership to things, and that's what happens is your brain starts to claim ownership of certain thoughts. So the key is shifting from self-judgment to actually compassion. And it lies in understanding that you are not solely bound by your judgments. You're not bound by the judgments that you cast upon yourself. So when you recognize your thoughts are just interpretations and they're not absolute truths like you make them be, then you start to shift. That's when you become consciously aware of your negative thought patterns. And the challenge that I want to challenge you with is start questioning those judgments. Start considering different perspectives. That maybe this is not the only idea that you have, right? It's very important. Is this judgment truly helpful right now? To judge this, is that truly helpful at the moment? Do I have other information to inform, my own point of view? So that's the thing. These thoughts come and go. You have the power of letting them go. We choose to let go of the critical voice that's keeping us stuck. Even if we haven't completely mastered it yet, we still have the power and ability to do that. So the gratitude rampage that I always share with people is it's really to get your mind moving in a different direction, giving it momentum in a different direction. This is a practice. It's not about ignoring the negative thoughts. It's actually reprogramming how we perceive the world, how we perceive them. Choose an object, pick an object in your room. It could be a lamp, a book, a photo frame, whatever the case would be, and ask, what am I grateful for about this object? Start there and just sit there, do nothing until an answer comes up. Okay, learn to sit in your feelings, not sit in your thoughts. Sit in your feelings, and whatever feeling comes up, let it come up. And let yourself dwell on the answer. Take a moment. What makes it valuable to you? What gives it a difference in your life? How has this object brought you some joy or comfort into your life? Is that object going to stay permanently into your life? Probably not. But while it's there, can you appreciate it while it's there? And this is your moment. This is your chance to feel grateful for what you have in the moment, because nothing is permanent. Not the house, not the car, not our lives, not the microwave. It's all there. So instead of saying, oh, that lamp is so old and ugly, try saying, wow, okay, it reminds me of grandma's cozy evenings that we've had together. It has a warm glow. It does give me a sense of calm in my room. It does light the room up at night when I have difficulty seeing. So when you start to look at things that way, these small things, and it seems so, and that's the thing, people that judge this exercise, they're the ones that need it the most because they're too busy in that judgment mode that they can't see the value in something tiny in their life. So they'll become so immune to being grateful. They just condition themselves to ignore gratitude. So when you shift your focus from self-judgment to gratitude, we open up to different perspectives. We start to have more compassion for ourselves and for other people, and we start to cultivate a more balanced way of thinking. Now, I got an exercise for you. I call it the Just Like Me exercise. It involves a little bit of people watching. You're going to watch some people. You can go out into public, sit on a park bench, just watch some people. That's what you're going to do. That's how we start off. So you'll be out there. You'll pick one subject, one person. You could be anyone in line at the grocery store, someone on a bus, someone working out. Just be mindful of their actions in the moment. And instead of just focusing on what's different about them, try to identify a question of how are we similar? How are we alike? That's the just like me moment. When you find those similarities, you're going to say to yourself, I understand that. I understand that. We're not really so different after all. They are just like me. They're just like you in terms of a human being. And that's the thing. Some people will be so high and mighty to look at a homeless person and say, well, they're not just like me. They're a drag of society. They'll throw down that judgment. But they are just like you. They're just like you in terms of being a human being, basic human dignity. Everybody has basic human dignity, and we've forgotten about it. But this actually works when you understand that other people are just like you. It starts to break down the barrier because you focused on the shared experiences that you've both been through. Maybe you've both cried, you've both been through pain, you've both suffered. And when you start to move beyond those distinctions that are superficial, age, clothes, we start tapping into something far more greater. Why this works is it starts to break down those barriers. And the beauty of this is it starts to cultivate empathy. You should need to recognize those similarities because they allow you to see yourself reflected in other human beings. It's about empathy inside. We all face similar struggles. Life shits on us all the same way. And a lot of people say, nope, that's not true. Again, that goes back to the judgment, right? That's where the judgment creeps in. When people start to get into that argument, that is the first step into getting into more judgment. But they are, on a basic level, just like you in terms of a human being, that they have emotions, they have struggles, they have desires, they have all those things. It's a common concept of humanity. And this exercise reminds us that we are part of a bigger picture of humanity, that we're all connected by experiences, we're connected by our challenges, we're connected by our pain, we're connected by our dreams, and that's the very human story. If you're on public transportation and you see somebody reading a book and they're really into it, you might think, oh, they look so stressed, but maybe they're just like you. They're just trying to make sense of something that's important in their life. And it's that moment where you could share it and understand it. The shared part of seeking, when we seek that knowledge, when we seek that understanding, it starts to bind us together and we're able to see that common human value. The common human values are resilience, that everyone has faced challenges, everyone has weathered a storm, and we find ways to adapt and to keep going. We also have connection. We crave belonging and connection with one another. We seek purpose. We try to find meaning in our lives. We try to find purpose in our lives. We seek joy, from laughter to excitement. So when you practice this concept of just like me, they're just like me, and when you say that out loud, your brain, its first reaction in terms of judgment, it will try to say, no, they're not just like me. They're homeless. You label. So here's what I want you to understand. If you label, hold an opinion, or judge during this, your mind will start to fight you in the process. Because it'll be the argument for limitation on another human being. That even though you're human, they're just like you. That they have feelings just like you. Let's go further so you can understand. So here's how we're going to break it down. This is how people are literally just like you. This is where we can get down to the granular truth about how people are just like you. I need you to open your mind with me and understand, okay? The very first thing is that people have basic needs. We all have basic needs. So they have a need for air, water, food, shelter, and safety. And there's going to be different cultures, different situations. So these are necessities of life, that they are just like you, that they need the basic needs just like you. Got it? That's what they need. They need air, water, food, and shelter, and safety just like you. In terms of emotions, they have emotions just like you. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, love. These are general, universal emotions just like you. Now, you seek meaning in your life, and they're seeking meaning as well. They seek meaning through work, relationships, hobbies, even the spiritual aspect, just like you. Even through philosophical, just like you. There's a drive for significance, to be important, or to have dignity as a human, just like you. In relationships, they want relationships just like you. They want to crave connection just like you. Okay, relationships are crucial for survival, for happiness, for social development, just like you. These are bonds that are at the core of our very existence, just like you. They want to learn and they want to grow too, even though they may not know how all the time, just like you. They're learning and growing just like you, from childhood to adulthood, just like you. And they have experiences that challenge them, even though you've been through it already, just like you. And it actually does indeed shape who we become. They have needs, biological needs, sleep, comfort, warmth, hot, cold, just like you. So, like, when we look at human beings, watch a child play with another. Watch a child play with another. And just look at just basic joy and expression. Just that connection through the laughter, the joy, the sharing. Everything becomes completely universal at that point. Those are universal patterns when you start to see that. It's the parents that throw the judgment in there. No, don't hang out with Johnny because his father believes XYZ. Like, this is how it goes, right? And meanwhile, the kids didn't have that judgment, and then the parents throw that in automatically, right? And we look at art and music. People like music, people like art. You know, these are expressions. They tap into the emotions, they tap into the experience. So the impact of just understanding people are just like you is the impact of connection, that sense of belonging. You have to look at what is just like you in other people so you become more connected to one another. And that's all I'm going to say. Have a great day. See you on the next episode.